Somniphobia!
Somniphobia was supposed to release like a month ago, but for whatever reason, it was delayed to December 6th. The stupid thing about this is that the book was already received by NTOM literally while I was still reading the HAP story, and it was leaked. And while the book was delayed, it started appearing in some Walmarts from the day that it was supposed to come out initially, November 1st, despite it being delayed, because it seems like maybe the stores didn't get the memo about it being delayed. I go to Walmart nearly every day, but I was not one of those people that was lucky enough to find the book, unfortunately. So now that the book is finally officially out, it's time for my summaries on each of the stories. In this video, we'll be doing a full summary of the first story in the book, Somniphobia. It's kind of weird because the title stories in Haps and Lally's game were actually the second stories in each respective book, but now the title story is the first story again. I don't really get why, it's kind of inconsistent, but nonetheless, this was a great story, and I think you guys are really going to like it. So, without further ado, let's start talking about Somniphobia. Somniphobia begins with a husband and wife named Bill and Mildred discussing another family. What happened was that other family was doing a yard sale, preparing to leave the state to get help from family to help their young son Josh, who had somehow randomly fallen into a sudden coma. Bill and Mildred, also known as Millie, decide that they should make a donation to help Josh's family out, and then the scene cuts off and switches over to the main character Sam Barker and his friends Rad, Jules, Larry, and Bogart. They were talking about phobias, to which Rad claimed his biggest fears were cliffs or high up ledges and clowns because of some movies he saw when he was younger. It's funny because he seems to be referencing the It movies, which are some of my favorite movies of all time, and the funny thing about that is that the sound effect for the FNaF 2 jump scare scream also appears in the first It movie from 2017, which is something I made a video about a long time ago, back when I was really bad at making videos. So Sam and his friends are on the bleachers at lunch on Friday, and they're talking about phobias and stuff. They're all seniors in high school, and the bleachers are where all the seniors hang out. After some unimportant exposition on like food and stuff, Bogart asks Sam what he is afraid of, and he says that he's afraid of small confined spaces, the extreme dark, and large bodies of water. This was partially because he never learned to swim. His dad never taught him, as his dad died when Sam was in 3rd grade. Jules filled in a brief moment of awkward silence by asking if they were all going to go to Misty Salazar's party. The group of guys always did everything as a group, so although Sam didn't really want to go, he did decide to as everyone else was going. He also thinks that Rad's birthday, which was in 2 days and would be celebrated with the guys at Freddy Fazbear's Mega Pizzaplex, would be more fun than Misty's party. So we cut to the party where Sam is kind of just sitting at a table by himself as far away from the swimming pool as possible. He was surprised when a nice girl named Lydia came over to his table. She complimented his glasses, which had been his father's, that had been updated to Sam's prescription, and she offered him a drink of what she only knew as Misty's birthday poolside punch. Sam noticed some people were acting silly and talking funny, so suspecting the drink was alcoholic, he decided to reject it. But then Jules came over and he told Sam to just drink it, but he didn't. The rest of the group came over and Lydia asked if they had heard about a cliff diving place in Santa Cruz, and Bogart mentions that you gotta love heights to enjoy it, so Rad wouldn't like it, because he was afraid of heights. Sam is a glass half empty kind of guy, so he started talking about how someone had died doing that cliff diving, and that Lydia should steer clear, so she quickly shifted away from them. Jules kind of scolds Sam for being so gloomy, and Rad tries to step in and calm Sam down to get him to relax, to which Jules responds by shoving the drink in Sam's face, prompting a splash onto his mouth and his shirt. The drink tasted disgusting, and Sam was royally pissed off, so he just left the party. Rad scolds Jules for being a dick and suggests they leave the party too. Then we get to Rad's birthday at Freddy Fazbear's Mega Pizzaplex, where we get descriptions of long lines waiting to get into Fazer Blast, Monty Golf, and Roxy Raceway. All the while, Glamrock Freddy and Roxanne Wolf are greeting people in the main area of the Pizzaplex. It's the first time we've gotten direct references to these areas and these characters from Security Breach itself, so it's pretty cool that we're getting this description. After playing all the games, Rad led the guys through a crowd towards the Fazcade prize shop and said that he wants one of the Moondrop's dream spheres, and that they can get one if they pull their tickets together. A dream sphere lights up the room and slips you into a hypnotic state that takes stuff from your subconscious and brings it more clearly into view, which would help you study. Rad wanted one to help him pass physics. The dream sphere is basically something that like looks like a snow globe with the Moondrop the Jester inside. Yeah, apparently Moondrop is a jester. I don't know, I never really thought about what he was, but I guess he's a jester, so alright. So they had 790 tickets and needed 1,000 for the dream sphere, so after playing some arcade games, they had enough and got the dream sphere. Once they got it, Rad suggested that they head to his house to test the sphere out. Sam was down to try it for a big test that was coming out if it is safe. Rad also had a lot of people at his house pretty often, which Sam couldn't relate to as it was just him and his mom all the time, but even his mom usually had school events or volunteering to do since she was an art teacher. There was a fine print on the packaging of the dream sphere that said to only use it for 10 minutes a day. They questioned why, but that was what they do. When they got to Rad's house, his dog Brutus started happily licking Rad's face, and Sam then went on to tell a story about how a drunk guy's dog ate his face off and that he was wary of dogs. However, Sam is stupid for not liking dogs, and he is instantly an unlikable protagonist. Rad's parents were out getting cake, so they seemed to be alone and went to test out the dream sphere, remembering to only do it for 10 minutes. When the dream sphere is turned on, Moondrop starts spinning, his eyes glowing red. At first, it was just annoying, but then Sam started feeling lightheaded. He moved slowly, like the air was heavy and thick. The room felt like it was stretched out, and his friends felt far away. All the guys started acting loopy. Words floated off the notebooks and into the air around them, and then they transformed into pictures surrounding them. The ceiling transformed into an open blue sky and bright, shining sun. They were standing with the pyramids nearby, the pyramids of Giza. They felt hot, like they were actually there. Someone said it was from their world history notes. Sam couldn't even tell who said it, though. It could have been him for all he knew. But it was like lucid dreaming, someone said. It was like he was actually in Egypt. The pyramids disappeared and a plane appeared taking off from a runway. Then a kitchen showed up with a cook taking pizza out of an oven. They could even smell the pizza. Then Romeo and Juliet showed up. Then the timer went off, so it was time to turn the thing off. All the guys were amazed. They loved it. They were going to be taking turns passing it around each week, and Sam wanted it first. So basically, the dream sphere makes the kids high. So anyway, moving on. After the dream sphere experience, all the guys claim that they remember everything now. They remember the facts and equations like they have a photographic memory and are experiencing the memories right now. When Sam took the sphere to take it home, he noticed it seemed to vibrate in his hands, even though it was unplugged and turned off. The next day after school, Sam immediately turned on the dream sphere in his room, first appearing in what felt like the imagination of Shakespeare, and then realizing that he took off his glasses before starting the sphere, but he could see perfectly fine. After the 10 minutes were up, Sam was disappointed that it was over, but he was immediately super energetic. He was happy. He suddenly got motivation to maybe consider lifting weights in the future. He cleaned up the apartment for the most part. He was hungry, so he decided to make him and his mom homemade lasagna, and she was shocked to find this when he got home. Sam told her he was just feeling good today and wanted to show his appreciation for all he does. I should also mention that Sam is on a really weird diet, so his lasagna is gluten-free and doesn't have any cheese. The next day, Sam thought about his previous experience with the dream sphere over and over in his head. It had felt so surreal and yet also very real, like he traveled to other worlds while just in his bedroom. He wanted to go do it for longer than just 10 minutes. He decided 15 minutes wouldn't be too big of a deal. He didn't think it would make a difference, so he set his wristwatch to 15 minutes. He turned on the dream sphere and saw stuff from his huge government book. Then the scene changed to a small park, which he thought was strange, as he wondered how this was related to history. His timer went off, meaning the 15 minutes had gone by, but he didn't know how this scene applied to it, so he decided to stay in it for a bit longer. But what he saw was himself, playing tag with his dad. This scene, this park, had been a part of Sam's own history. He was also in the position of his younger self, seeing from his own younger eyes. He ran after his dad, who was prompting him to come catch him, but he lost him. His dad disappeared. But then he jumped out from behind some trees and picked Sam up, swinging him around in a circle. The watch beeped again, and Sam turned off the dream sphere begrudgingly. He had still been laughing from the memory until he began to cry. He sat there for a while, reliving the memory in his head over and over again. We cut to him looking around in the hall closet for something. His mom came over and asked what he was doing, and he said that he was looking for some of his dad's stuff to remember him after seeing the memory. His mom pointed out a box that he could look into, so he did, and there were a bunch of old pictures of his dad, a wallet, and keys to his motorcycle that he died on in an accident, some shirts, coins, CDs, headphones, and stuff like that. He took the headphones and a couple CDs, replaced the batteries, and then went to his room to listen to some. He closed his eyes and thought about his dad. Then we cut to Sam after his test, where he scored 115%. Usually he got in the 90s, but he had aced this test and gotten all the extra credit stuff. Jules then asked when he would share the dream sphere now that he'd aced the test, and Sam said that he would after the week was over, as they'd made a clear-cut schedule and would be sticking to it. Jules was upset about that, but Sam told him to take it up with Rad. It took him a second to realize that he didn't let Jules push him around, and usually he did. For once, he actually stood up for himself. Later at lunch, Rad caught up with Sam on the way to the bleachers and asked how the dream sphere was going, and he said it was good. He didn't mention the memory of his dad, though, as it was too personal. Rad also asked if Sam was up for trimming a tree in the backyard tomorrow after school, and he was down. Rad also apologized about how Jules was being at Misty's party, and Sam said that he had nothing to apologize for. The two of them climbed up onto the bleachers, and we cut to after school. Normally, Sam would hang out with his friends after school, but today he went straight home, eager to get back to the dream sphere. This was partially because he was curious about whether or not another memory of his dad would pop up. He also decided that since 15 minutes didn't do any harm, why not 20? Something told him that might not be such a good idea, but he didn't care and did it anyway. He set his watch for 20 minutes and took his glasses off, then turned on the dream sphere. He was back to being high. He saw ocean stuff, but he felt like he couldn't handle it all, and then the scene changed, and the apple he had been eating floated into the air and was dissected. Before him were all the healthy facts about apples, and he said that he needed to eat apples more often. Then he started experiencing the memories. He saw memories of going on a road trip with his parents and to an amusement park where they went on rides, played games, ate funnel cake, and his dad won him a stuffed giraffe. He sat on his dad's shoulders where he could see everything, including a clown with fluffy red hair. Then he saw a trip to the zoo, then a trip to the beach. He felt like he was really there. He could taste the salty air and felt the sand on his skin. He saw a family movie night. He saw the happiest moments of his life, and Sam felt like he'd forgotten all the amazing times he'd had when his dad was still alive. He didn't know whether he forgot them or if he buried them because they were too painful to remember after his dad had died. He heard the alarm and he turned off the dream sphere. But he wasn't sad about it this time. He closed it with a smile, happy to have relived these happy memories. He grabbed the headphones and began listening to his dad's music while reminiscing about the memories he just relived. Later that evening, he found his mom was in his room holding and looking at the dream sphere. Sam was kind of irritated, like he was really protective of it. He told his mom what it did and she was cool about it, but she just made sure to tell him to be careful with stuff like this. She went to do the dishes and Sam considered going for another 10-minute session with the dream sphere today, even though you weren't meant to do that. But he decided against it as he thought he'd be too distracted with his mom in the house. That night, his sheets felt really itchy, so he shot up and thought he saw the eyes of Moondrop glowing red, but he thought he was just imagining it. He wanted to go to sleep, but he couldn't relax. But when he used the dream sphere, he was always relaxed. He considered using it, but he decided he could wait until tomorrow and put it in the closet. The next day at school, he was kind of irritable. He couldn't focus on the teacher's words even though he sensed his presence. Jules called to him, telling him that class was over, questioning what was wrong with him. He insisted it was nothing. Jules accidentally bumped into Sam, and Sam told him to watch where he was going. Jules reciprocated the sentence and intentionally bumped him, almost knocking Sam over. Sam was getting angry. He stormed to his locker, grabbing his lunch, and slammed the door to find Lydia standing next to him. She asked if he was alright as he looked upset, and he said he was fine. He said that he was just tired, and Lydia started to say something, seemingly about to ask him out, but Sam interrupted her, oblivious to what was happening, and he told her he had to go. Lydia seemed kinda upset and just said, "Oh, okay, bye," and then Sam walked to the bleachers. He wondered why people were suddenly interested in how he was doing, as normally people basically ignored him. But now, the one time he wanted to be left alone, people were in his business. Rad asked how he was, also claiming he looked tired, and Jules mentioned how he spaced out, claiming it was because of the sphere. Sam responded by saying that Jules wanted the sphere a little too bad, but Sam himself was really acting on edge. Eventually he was tired of it, insulting Jules and telling his supposed friends that he doesn't always want to kid around. Sometimes he wants to be left alone, free of people picking on him. He stormed off, some of the other seniors staring at him, and he went to eat his lunch somewhere else, thinking to himself that he was being grouchy, but he was tired of his friends telling him that. He didn't have enough food, and he didn't have the CD player, so he thought about sinking into the dream state with the sphere. Obviously he didn't have the sphere right now, though. He was always calm and at peace with the sphere, free of the anxiety he was feeling now. Life was safe with the dream sphere. Usually Sam could brush off the jabs his friends threw at him, but for whatever reason he couldn't today. After school, he got a coffee, which he hated the taste of, but he thought it would help him snap out of it. He walked home, and on the way, he saw an ad for the Pizzaplex with images of Glamrock Freddy and Chica and Monty and Roxy all looking happy. This also gives us a rough idea of when this story takes place, seeming to be later on in the Pizzaplex era, probably closer to when Security Breach takes place, as Monty is one of the main characters at the Pizzaplex by the time of this story, and Bonnie is not. Monty was always a character at the Pizzaplex, but he wasn't a main one until Bonnie went missing. Sam saw snow globes through windows too. Everything reminded him of the Dream Sphere. He wanted to prove his friends wrong about him using it too much, so even though he wanted to use the sphere now, he also didn't want to. But he felt like if he did, the irritation would just vanish, and that's all that matters. Why should he care what Jules thought? So he finished out the coffee, and when he got home, he took the Dream Sphere out of the closet, set his watch for 20 minutes, and turned the sphere on. When he got out of it, he felt better, but unlike how he felt when he first started using the Dream Sphere, there was no longer any feeling of energy. Instead, he was exhausted. He wondered if he was using the sphere too much, but then immediately disregarded that, as he thought that obviously wasn't the case. Sam got a text from Rad, realizing he'd forgotten he was going to help Rad with the yard work. He apologized, saying he was tired and went straight home. And Rad said that it was fine, and he got Jules to help him. Rad was Sam's only good friend, so he was worried about messing up their friendship. Looking into the mirror, Sam found that his eyes had dark circles under them, and his skin was really pale. He once again had the thoughts that this was the Dream Sphere's doing, but dismissed it as it was just a spinning globe with lights and there's no way that it could harm him. When his mom got home, he tried to look happy, but he just couldn't fake it. And at dinner, he doesn't speak with his mom really at all. When he's asked to do the dishes, he gives his mom attitude, and there's a big dispute where his mom is insisting something is wrong with him as he's not acting how he normally does. She suspects that it's something to do with the Dream Sphere, and Sam believes that this is an outrageous claim. They argue for a bit until Sam slams the door and turns on the Dream Sphere. The next day, Sam stays home from school. He and his mom apologize to each other for the argument last night, and Sam says that it's been hard lately. His mom understands and allows him to stay home from school as he didn't get good rest last night. He'd had weird dreams and he tossed and turned all night. He didn't get why he couldn't sleep well, but he just couldn't. He thought maybe it was the coffee. His mom said to take a break from the weird ball thing, and he said that he would and he'd be giving it back to Rad soon. When she left, he went to use the Dream Sphere immediately. He was lying when he said he'd take a break, of course. He didn't like that it wasn't energizing him anymore, but he could live with that part, as it still helped him relax and study. So he turned on the Dream Sphere, and a memory came with him on a motorcycle road trip with his dad. His dad tells him to get out of his comfort zone and make smart, responsible choices in life, and he claims that Sam might not understand this now, but he hopes that he will remember it when he's older, when it matters. Sam asked his dad if he would be there to remind him when the time was right, and his dad said that he would. It's honestly a really sad scene just because we know the outcome of this. His dad wasn't there to remind him, and because of the pain Sam felt in his dad's death, his mind blocked out these memories, so he couldn't remember this valuable lesson. The only time he finally learns the lesson is through contradicting it, and that's kind of heartbreaking to me. Sam was upset after reliving the memory because he's done the opposite of what his dad wanted for him. He decided that he wanted to be someone who went outside his comfort zone. Suddenly, the wristwatch beeped, and Sam started to lift his arm to turn off the Dream Sphere, but strangely, he couldn't lift his arm from his bed. He didn't know what was wrong with him. The memory switched over to Sam eating cereal before going to school, his dad saying goodbye to him as he was going to work, but Sam being too invested in the TV to pay attention. He didn't want to relive this memory. He heard the motorcycle revving up outside, and the memory switched over to his mom picking him up after school, telling him there was an accident and taking him to the hospital. Sam's chest was tight and felt scared. He started yelling that he didn't want to see this. He tried to swing his arm up to turn off the Dream Sphere, but the memories kept coming, some seeming more and more entwined with reality. This is where the story gets its name. The Dream Sphere puts you in an actual dream state, so in the real world, you're basically asleep. Somniphobia is the fear of falling asleep and never waking up. Here, Sam is having huge trouble waking up. Remember at the beginning of the story how there was that kid Josh that was mentioned who randomly fell into a coma? Now that you've learned about the Dream Sphere, the dream state it puts you into, and the definition of somniphobia, what do you think happened to Josh? Now, after a memory of his dad's actual death, Sam was able to build enough strength to turn off the Dream Sphere. When he woke up, he was dizzy, questioned his reality. His eyes had literally begun bleeding. He had a throbbing headache, and there was sweat all over his forehead. Sam finally recognized that since getting the sphere, he hasn't been doing well for himself. He was obsessed with it, getting urges to use it every waking moment of his life. His life was slowly breaking apart. He realized he'd finally had to give the sphere back to Rad, so that's what he did. He headed over to Rad's house, knocking on the door and calling for Rad's mom and dad, but no one was home. The door was unlocked, so he went inside and found an empty house prompting him to call Rad, who said that he would be there for a study session in 25 minutes. He set the sphere on Rad's coffee table and decided that while he was waiting for the guys, was the perfect time for him to have one last experience with Moondrop's dream sphere. He believed that the guys would be there just in time to get him out, so he might as well just not set his watch. He looked at Moondrop and said that he wanted this last experience to be the best one. So Sam turned on the dream sphere, but this time he didn't see memories. He was at his high school talking to Rad, who was telling him that he should ask Lydia to prom. While Rad was trying to convince him, Sam got a call from his dad, who was alive and well, and told him to come straight home after school, as his mom had sold her first art piece, and Sam's dad had a surprise dinner planned for her. Sam realized that Moondrop had actually heard his request and was giving him an experience where his dad was alive. After finishing the call with his dad, Sam decided to go for it. He went up to Lydia and asked her to prom, and she actually said yes. And this scene, while it portrays what Sam's life could have been like had he actually been happy, if you think about it that way, it's honestly a really sad scene, because none of this is real. Sam isn't happy, and that's really sad. This whole story is just really sad. Not as sad as B7, but it's a close second when it comes to the saddest tale stories thus far. So we then cut to Rad meeting up with the guys and explaining that Sam has the sphere at Rad's house and that they could do a study session. But Jules said that his friend Davis works at the Pizzaplex and that they should go to wait minimal time in the lines for a brand new awesome arcade game. They decided to go, and Rad texted Sam to let him know that they wouldn't be there. We cut back to Sam, who's writing SATs, and since this was a dream, he knew all the answers and finished before everyone. After handing in his test, he left the classroom, and strangely, he found the dream sphere in his dream sphere-induced dream. Meeting his friends at the bleachers, he asked Rad whose turn it was with the sphere, but then Rad didn't know what sphere he was talking about. Jules was claiming that he was the strongest of the group, and Sam said that he could be stronger as they're the same height and build. Jules takes this as a challenge, and they arm wrestle. While Jules was strong, this was Sam's dream, so he was able to defeat Jules. Against all odds, Jules said that Sam won fair and square, and shook his hand. Suddenly, Sam heard a phone ringing, and he realized that it was Rad's house phone. Sam realized that they should have been here by now, so where were they? Obviously, we know, but Sam had ignored the text from Rad earlier, so he didn't know. Sam tried to get out of the dream, but he couldn't. The dream versions of his friends questioned his mentality. When Sam heard Brutus approaching, he yelled for him to stay back, and Rad said that Brutus isn't here. Sam then suddenly realized that he hadn't plugged in the dream sphere, so how was it working anyway? He didn't understand. He suddenly began feeling sharp pains on his face and all over his body. First his ear, then his cheek. Then it started everywhere. Sam ran to the bathroom in his dream and saw that nothing was visibly wrong with him, but he still felt like he was being torn apart. Behind him in the mirror was Moondrop smiling. In the real world, Brutus was eating Sam's face, but in the dream world, suddenly, the pain stopped. Sam calmed down. He turned and smiled at Moondrop, audibly saying that everything was fine, and then walked out the door with Moondrop, excited for their adventures, while in the real world, Moondrop on the dream sphere slowly stopped spinning, and that is where the story ends. It really boggles my mind how insane these stories get. This story literally has a guy get addicted to Remnant illusion drugs and then die from a dog eating him while still in his dream and getting trapped within that dream. I love this story. It may be one of the best stories in Tales from the Pizzaplex, if not the best, but I have heard the next story, Pressure, is better, so I guess we'll find out in tomorrow's video. I think it's pretty clear that this story is an allegory for drug use, how apparently it makes you feel better, but it also makes you push away everyone in your life. It makes you more loopy, it makes you kind of drive yourself crazy. Not that I would know, but like, that's what the story is trying to say. It's like, no matter how good they make you feel, they ruin your life, basically. And they're also really bad for your health. So basically what I think the Dream Sphere probably actually does is uses illusion discs. Now this isn't certain or anything, but it just makes the most sense to me. It makes them loopy, which illusion discs do, and illusion discs also overwhelm your brain so that you automatically see what you expect to see. Given how the Dream Sphere is advertised and how they bring all of their notebooks and stuff, they expect to see what's in their notebooks, so that's what they see. Also, it's kind of interesting that the first story in Tales from the Pizzaplex, Frailty, had to do with illusion discs, how the Remnant pendant was changing the appearance of Jessica so that nobody knew that she was made of scrap metal. And the first story in the second book, Help Wanted, was about a dude who was being taunted by illusion discs. So it's kind of interesting that there's kind of like an illusion disc theme. So that's kind of interesting. So that's what I think the Dream Sphere does. I think it uses illusion discs, but it also makes people high. But then if we go back to Epilogue 11 from Faster Frights, Talbert says that people and things that are lost can be made almost real again by Remnant, which is kind of similar to the way that Sam thinks about the Dream Sphere. It's said that it feels so surreal, yet also very real. As I just said, it seems like the Dream Sphere has something to do with illusion discs, yet Eleanor in Faster Frights has a Remnant pendant that changes her appearance. So if we think about illusion discs and how both them and Remnant are connected to the Dream Sphere, and Remnant mimics illusion discs in the case of Eleanor, is it possible that illusion discs are actually made using Remnant? Henry made the illusion discs in the books to warp the world around him because he hated the reality. Maybe he made the illusion discs through pouring his anguish into them. And that's also why Charlotte was created, and why the fourth Charlie Bot ended up being evil. Maybe he made the illusion discs through pouring his anguish into them, as that's also how the Charlie Bot was made, and why the fourth Charlie Bot ended up being evil. However, there is one small flaw with this idea. Remnant heals you, yet at the end of the story, Sam suddenly feels calm because he has finally died and can no longer feel what's actually happening to his body. How could he have died if it's Remnant? There's probably an explanation, maybe it's just not Remnant, but other things seem to suggest it is. So right now, I don't exactly have an answer, so if you do, leave it down in the comments below. But if you did enjoy this video, please do make sure to leave a like and subscribe. We're getting closer and closer to 10,000 subscribers. I don't think we're going to hit it before the end of the year, but if you can help me reach that milestone, I would really appreciate it. But of course, it's up to you. I can't force you to subscribe. It's all up to you. But anyways, guys, I hope you all enjoyed this video. Stay tuned for the next summary, which will be on the second story in this book titled Pressure, and that summary will hopefully be out tomorrow, if not the day after, and I will see you all then. Bye, guys!